At the focal point of the holiday activities at Kings Island's Winterfest is a lavishly decorated international street with the replica 314-foot tall Eiffel Tower transformed into one of the world's largest Christmas tree displays. Their gigantic tree overlooks International Street and the Royal Fountain, which is transformed into Snowflake Lake for ice skating. Hello, I'm Don Helbig, and I'm here with my co host Ryan Sir, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast for Kings Island fans by Kings Island fans. That's who we are, and that's who we care about.
Ryan, Winterfest, ice skating. Have you ever experienced skating on the Royal Fountain during this event?
Yes, so little backstory. 2005, when Winterfest first came, that was my first experience with Winterfest because I was kind of too little for the first iteration of Winterfest.
Mhm.
I promised myself I'd do it. I never ended up doing it. I had Mondo regrets for 13, 14 years. And then I was like, this is the year I'm going to do it. I finally get to ice skate on the fountain. And then didn't. And then didn't again. And I did it for the first time ever last year. And boy, had I been missing out. That is so freaking fun. I love it.
Would you call it a must do activity at Winterfest?
Yeah, I mean, like, there are some people that just blatantly, like, can't ice skate, and that's probably not the best place to learn because it is crowded, but if you're a regular Kings Island fan, that's a place in the park where you've probably never been, like, kind of inside where that fountain is. So, being able to see the park from the fountain area is really neat, and being able to ice skate, which is something you can't normally do, is also really neat, but, it's, the cool part about it that I like is that the skates are included with the ticket, and, I don't know if we have the price or not yet, but you don't have to bring your skates and carry them around the park. Like you and I both own skates, but I bet most people don't. Um,
Yeah, you're right. So we want to have some insider tips here for you.
yeah,
Tip number one, to ensure the best skating experience, you want to grab your tickets online. The sessions are 90 minutes long, but there's a limited number of spots for each of those sessions. So you want to plan ahead. Don't wait until the last minute if you know you're going to Winterfest and you want to ice skate.
yeah, completely agree. Um, and speaking of planning, tip number two, you can save time by completing the waiver online. Before you go, I would 100% recommend doing that. If you're under 18, you have to have a parent or guardian to sign that for you.
Absolutely, Ryan. Those lines can back up, signing those waiver forms. So again, do it in advance. Now let's talk about the session times. There's three of them. So you can choose from those three. We mentioned 90 minutes for those sessions. Now that's a lot of ice time if you're out there skating. 90 minutes. If you're not really a skater, you're just looking for something fun to do. Most uh, guests aren't going to last the 90 minutes. They're going to need to take a lot of breaks or something like that. So don't feel like you have to hit the ice right at the top of your session. There's plenty of time to go out there and skate. So look at the activities you want to do at Winterfest, and you want to book your time around those activities so you don't miss out on doing those kind of things.
Right. And speaking of everything above, tip number four is that you got to factor in the time for the voucher, the waiver, skate fitting, getting on the ice. All that does take up quite a bit of time. So plan around that. I believe you can pick up your skates a little early. They'll keep you off the ice until approximately the time. But you'll be able to save yourself probably 15, 20 minutes, if not more, on a busy night by picking up your skates early, having the waiver done, and so on, and being ready to hit the ice as soon as they open up the gates.
Tip number five, game changer, if you're going to ice skate, is that, as you mentioned earlier, there's no extra charge for the ice skate rentals. If you have your own skates, bring your own. If you have your own skates, you've already done your waiver, just ask a park associate that you're going to see on International Street, where do I go to hit the ice?
Absolutely. And if you don't want to bring your skates, remember that it is included with the ticket, which, by the way, looking at the website right now, is $20, which is not bad for rental and 90 minutes on the ice. So tip number six, when hitting the ice, make sure you lace your skates for comfort and ankle support. Your ankles are going to be the first thing to give out when you're skating, especially if you're an inexperienced skater. Don't over tighten at the bottom, secure your ankle, and make sure that you keep your ankle flexible. You don't want to have it hard, but you definitely want to have it so it's firm, but you can move it.
And as a former ice hockey player, that's very wise advice there, Ryan, on how to put your skates on. Lastly, tip number 7, it's Winterfest. So you want to dress for the weather. Winterfest can get chilly, so you want to layer up and keep warm for the ultimate skating experience. And when you're down there on the ice, I mean, Ryan, you've done it. I've done it. I mean, it is breathtaking. You see all the lights up and down International Street, the buildings, the tower, um, picturesque. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that in terms of outdoor skating. Pretty much anywhere in the country, really.
Yeah, we're thinking about making it a tradition the night before Christmas Eve because Winterfest is typically closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, so the associates can spend time, with their families. But the day before Christmas Eve is very busy, and we that's the day we did the skating last time. It's me, my girlfriend, our other friends, and their 7-year-old son. Um, and it's just such a good time, and I couldn't recommend it more. Um, so I'm ready to hit the ice. So Winterfest opens at Kings Island. It's their Halloween event, or their holiday event. The Halloween event is over, believe
Yes.
it or not. Time flies. But that begins for 2023, November 24th, which is the day after Thanksgiving. Very cool. All right, let's move on to our listener question. It comes from Jared. Considering all the budget cuts we've seen this year at Kings Island, do you think the return on the blue side of the racer will still be retracked this winter as originally planned?
Well, you and I have not seen anything from the park posted, on their social media channels or a blog that indicates that the track work has begun.
Right.
But it was planned to do so. I think the thing that I would, suggest is if you're going to Winterfest opening weekend is to kind of go into Area 72, and it's one of the winter wonderlands that they have for Winterfest, and just kind of, you can get a great view after you go under the racer. Just look down, and you'll be able to tell if there's anything going on, if they torn apart the track. I know last year on the Red Racer side, pretty much the day after the fall season ended, they started working on that and tearing it apart. And by the time Winterfest opened, I mean, pretty much the whole thing, from the brake run working back to the turnaround had already been stripped out. So if that's going to happen, if they are still moving forward with that, and I certainly hope so, um, you will see some work, going on there.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is that I mean, a 2-year gap between them, like that would be extraordinarily noticeable, where one side would be way rougher than the other. So, fortunately, it's probably something that has to be done. Um, could you think of a reason why, like any kind of thought process why they wouldn't want to share photos or anything like that of it being done? I mean, maybe it's because Winterfest is coming up and the racer won't be open, so they want
Well,
people
we
talking about
well we did it
Winterfest.
No, I mean, it was done last year. I mean, that was, things, there were blogs about it, there were social media posts about it and everything, in advance of Winterfest, because there's a lot of interest in things like that. So I don't know why they, wouldn't be sharing that that is happening. Again, because there's significant interest in that ride. But at the same time, if they're not doing it, um, like you said, there'd be a 2-year gap, between doing one side and the other, and there would be a noticeable difference between riding both of those sides.
Yeah, I agree. And for those who don't know, we do have an episode with Mike Graham from the Gravity Group that goes into a deep explanation of the type of work that the Gravity Group does to reinvigor, shall we say, these wooden coasters. You've got RMC that replaces track with a metal track, and there's Titan track coming from GCI. Gravity Group keeps it true wood. They've got a new technology where they cut the wood, and I'm not going to try to talk out of term because I'm not an engineer or a carpenter, but they cut the wood in a precision way and they make it thicker and they make it stronger. So it's lasts longer, it's more durable, and it kind of takes out those sections that are kind of rough and makes them feel like a brand new ride while still maintaining the integrity of it being a wood coaster, not a wood coaster with steel spots to it or anything like that. So
Yeah, the red side last year was, phenomenal from the time you left the station until the time you got back. It really felt in a lot of ways, you know, like it did in the 70s and for most of the 80s. Very smooth. You were, getting the airtime, and it just felt like old times again. Outside of, you didn't have the buzz bars, so that was really the only major difference. But it was running phenomenal, so there was a lot of excitement for me thinking, I can't wait to get the blue side done. And, then you've got the next, however many years of just almost like you said, a brand new ride.
I feel like okay, let me ask your opinion on this because I've been thinking about this, or actually every time I ride the racer, think about this. I never felt like the racer was like an airtime coaster, but now I feel like it does have airtime. Do you think that there's more airtime because of this, or I just notice it now because I'm not defending myself during the ride?
Just the way it was retracked, um, it's a little slight profile change. Now, when they put the individual lap bars in, and then you went from the skid brakes to the trim brakes, you added all this extra
Mhm.
weight to the train, so it wasn't running the same as it did. The trains were heavier, so you weren't going to get, um, you know, that airtime moments, as significant as there had been in the 70s and the 80s. So, some of that returned. It's still not as good as it used to be, but, a lot of that had returned from the track work that had been done, from the first drop to the turnaround, in the, previous years. And then last year, the red side with the return coming back. So a lot of that, did come back. Um, but yeah, I just think that it's just because of the reprofiling that to kind of really adjust to now what the weight of the trains and all that
I
is.
just yeah, I mean, I don't know if Mike Graham touched on this or if it's something that you and I just kind of discussed. Like I can't remember, but the part of the problem is a lot of these coasters had buzz bars and maybe even NAD trains or whatever, and now they've got trains that weigh 30 or 40% more. And it's like the track can handle it, but it wasn't designed for it. So their
No.
sections for the high stress are designed for that sort of thing, and that's what's causing a more comfortable ride. I can tell you, like, when they read profile a ride or they redo a ride or whatever, usually it's a very small percentage that really care or even notice or anything. The buzz around the park was ridiculous when the racer reopened, as far as, hey, have you tried it? It's like a brand new freaking ride. Like, to have the average guest notice that, it's such a testament to the technology that they're using. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even before they did the return on the red side, when they had done the first part of it, and Gravity Group came in and did their thing with their new technology, painting it back red, white, and blue. I mean, for a lot of guests, it did feel like a brand new ride, and it was refreshing to see the ride return to its original colors, and it just looked more vibrant in Coney Mall. So I was very excited about that, and I really got to give credit to Mike Kuntz, the general manager at Kings Island. He really pushed to have that ride painted. It's not cheap
Mm-mm.
to do that, and the cost to do it now, compared to what it was in 1972, is significant. And you could almost take that money and you almost could have built a racer back in 1972 for what it cost just to paint it. So yeah, I really want to, you got to applaud Mike Kuntz for wanting to restore the ride back to its original glory.
Yeah, I mean, and made good business sense too, because if you painted it just white, again, 3% will notice. People probably notice that Coney Mall looks better in general, but if it's back to its old colors, like there's a story there and there's nostalgia there. And even for the people that don't know, like for me, my whole life, it's been black and white until that sounded kind of cryptic. The racer's always been black and white, not my life. But so I never knew it any other way. So it was only red, white, and blue through photos. But for other people that like don't even know that, it's kind of like, oh, this looks like an old like pier roller coaster or a boardwalk roller coaster or something like that, which I think is kind of cool. It definitely caught the eye. So it doesn't just look better, it looks better and it looks new. So thank you so much for the question. It was a Jared. Jared, thank you so much for the question. Very cool. We'll have to see. The park will probably roll out on their social eventually that they're doing this, but until we know that for sure, we'll just speculate. But I'm willing to guess that they are, and that's kind of as far as we can go. Awesome. I am Ryan Sir, and this is Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.